Hey, what's going on? This is Chadwick Experiences radio show brought to you by WDRB Media. I have a special guest, but we go back way years. I think we were in middle school band together. Then we went to high school together. We're class of 2003 at Southwest Onslow High School in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Go Stallions. But the real reason I want her on this show is because she has an experience that I have. That's living, working, and traveling and breathing and sleeping international travel. So I want to welcome Alicia to my radio show.
Hi. It's good to be here.
Yes, it is. And you just came from a country back to the States. So where did you just come from?
I just came from China.
Oh, wow. So if I say ni hao, do you understand what that means?
Yes, hello.
Exactly. So see, I'm trying to learn a little bit of foreign language. So I'll say sheer.
Yeah. Oh, sheer.
Yep. So that's what I love about this international experience. I can't wait to break it down. So can you kind of talk to me? Because here at Chadwick Experiences, I love showing other people that whatever route you take in life is okay. A lot of high school students are getting ready to transition to college and all that jazz. Can you just give us a quick walkthrough? What was your steps after high school and how did you get into working, living, breathing, international travel?
Yeah, so after high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My friend said, we have to go to college. I was like, oh, more school, great. So I did. It took me a while to graduate because I just didn't want to be there. And then I got into the job market here. And by the way, my degree is in mathematics.
Nice.
After I switched it 4 times. So then my sister had sent me a movie to watch, Finding Mr. Perfect or Finding Mr. Destiny. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I want to travel. I want to leave the United States. So the first place that I applied for jobs online. And the first place that I was offered an opportunity that I could take was to go to Kyrgyzstan. I knew nothing about the country, didn't know it existed, because my knowledge of the world is US public schools. So I knew Italy, I knew France.
Yep. Bonjour.
Yeah. Australia, but I didn't know Kyrgyzstan. So the first time he had said it to me, I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. And then I had him spell it for me. I had no idea what I was getting into, no idea where it was on the map. But I was ready to leave. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I did it. And I ended up spending 7 years in Kyrgyzstan, living there and working.
And can you describe what that opportunity is like? I know for me, I hear a lot of American teachers complaining about pay and everything. If I'm not mistaken, when you do go overseas, there are some breaks, correct? Where housing is sometimes covered.
So if you're going to go overseas, for even if it's not for teaching, like if you're doing a contracting job, as long as it's not for the US government or a US company, you are not subject to taxes. So your first year, unless you leave, so if you leave in January, so say you left January 2025 and you stayed in that country the whole year, so all of 2025, the US government can't tax you.
You know what? I can concur. When I contracted overseas, it was called for us the 330 rule. So pretty much as long as you stayed out of the United States 330 days, X amount of dollars of what you made was tax-free. So a lot of people always say, oh, it's illegal to not pay taxes. No, it's not. It is legal sometimes to not pay taxes.
Yeah, I think it comes under like 75,000 or something like that.
Yeah, for us, it would vary.
Like the first year I paid taxes because I was in the United States for half the year, so I had to pay taxes. But after that, I haven't paid US taxes, federal or state. So all the money comes into my pocket. And Kyrgyzstan is a very cheap place to live. I was only spending $300 a month. So I was usually packing. I had, because they would give me 800, they would give me 800 US dollars to send the rest to my US bank account.
Nice.
The rest of my money went to my US bank account. 800 came to me every month. And I would then only spend 300 of that. So by the end of the year, when I'm ready to go either travel someplace or come back to the US, you have all this money stacked up in your apartment. And you're like, oh, am I under 10,000? Can I get it to the US?
And you know, that's funny you mentioned that, because even me, when I traveled to Europe, out of all the countries I've been to, I really enjoyed Europe. The food quality was better. Your money went further. So I want to tell this to my audience. Even if you work a contract for even $40,000 a year, if that's tax-free, they're giving you a place to live and food, and you're in a cheap country, as Alicia said, she just spent $300. Imagine how far $40,000 can go when you're not paying that light bill in the States. You're not paying probably an expensive cell phone bill. You're not paying for so much gas, because I don't want to jump the gun here, but in Kyrgyzstan, how was the travel? When I was in Europe, Seoul, Korea, I could jump on a train and pay like $2 US equivalency and travel anywhere just about in that country, or go to another country and it was only like 20 bucks.
Yeah, living in Kyrgyzstan, there were 2 flights out. You could either fly through Turkey or you could fly through Russia. But because the country itself was so cheap, my summer travel was basically all the money that I had saved in my apartment. I never had to spend the money that was in my bank account. Like,
Wow.
taxis would cost me less than $1 to take a
Exactly.
taxi. The bus was 8 som, which I think is 27 cents.
Yeah.
So you could take the bus, you can go anywhere. When I lived in Hungary, I just rented a car because it was easier. And with the car, because I work in Hungary, I am already in Europe. I don't have to do the whole 90-day thing, which meant that I could just drive. I didn't have to stop at the border. So I would always go to Austria or drive to Slovenia, or drive to Croatia, drive to Slovakia, because it's easy to drive. You could also take a bus, a Flixbus. My friend is moving to Belarus for the next school year, and he's getting dropped off in Lithuania, and I'll take the bus across the border into Belarus. And I told him, I was like, yeah, you get your driver's license, your international driver's license.
Yep.
And you could drive anywhere you want to.
And can you break that down for people too? Because lucky for me, when I was working in Korea, I did the international driver's license. I think it was good for like 2 years or 1 year, and that it shows you on that brochure what countries will accept an international driver's license. Can you kind of give people some game on that as well? I've done that as well.
Yeah, it was. So as long as you have a US driver's license, you can usually go to your insurance company and be like, can I get can I get an international driver's license? I also think that AAA does it.
Yep, AAA. I was going to say that.
The AA Advantage, something like that. One of those companies, they'll give you, I think mine was only $20. I went through the DMV. Mine was 20 bucks. And you sign it and they verify that you've got a license, and this international driver's license opens up the world.
Yeah, it does.
My friend and I did a road trip from northern Italy, because we were driving northern Italy together. And I was like, oh, hey, our friend is in Croatia. You want to drive to Croatia? So then we took the car and drove from Italy to Croatia to go see our friend in Zagreb. And it's one of those things where if you have a US driver's license and you plan to travel overseas, get the international driver's license. Just get the license. It's easy, it's no hassle, and then you can drive. And almost a lot of places drive on the same side of the road as us. There are some places that don't, and in those countries I don't drive because it turns me around in my head, and I'd rather just not bother with it. But you know.
Nice. And I hear you talk about a place. I've been to Budapest, Hungary before myself when I was in Europe. I totally get it. I hit some of the places you said, Austria, Vienna. It was
Yeah.
nice airport there. But in Budapest, did you ever visit the baths? There were some good parties that I actually got to see and
Yeah,
hang out with.
the thermal baths. I've actually been to the baths in Budapest. I've been to the baths in Turkey. I've been to them in Czech Republic,
Okay.
Poland. Like there are the thermal baths. The ones in Turkey were outside, beautiful baths. The ones in Budapest were inside, but essentially you're in your swimsuit. I don't know what the temperature in these things are. I call it the relaxing temperature where you could really just fall asleep. We did it at 11 o'clock at night because we knew it wouldn't be very busy. But it's essentially you're getting into a really hot pool is how I equate it to. Yeah, like you're getting in a really hot pool. And you can get massages or at least the one that I was at, you could get massages. You can get different things done at these things.
Yeah. Out of all the places you travel, is there any geographical area or region that you like? Me personally, I have to say Europe, as far as the way I think, my belief system. It was amazing for me because I've never drank coffee. But while walking around Europe, coffee is served in the morning, it's served at lunch, it's served at dinner, it's served after the clubs. And I just fell in love with that culture in that region. I haven't went as far as you, like Pakistan and all that, but is there any region that you really love, and why do you love that particular place?
I don't know if there's a region. There are certain countries and aspects of those countries that I love. So like for Spain, me and Spain get along well because they have a lovely thing called a siesta. And who doesn't love a midnight nap? I am a nap girly. I'm like, what? It's nap time? Great, let's do it.
So can you break that down for my listeners? What is that? You said it's a nap during the daytime. Break that down versus our American culture.
Yeah. So in Spain, they have a thing called a siesta. It's essentially a rest time. And the whole country will shut down. So like the shops close, the restaurants close, and it's this 3-hour block in the middle of the day where you can go home and you can get lunch, you can take a midday nap. So me and my friend would go out and we'd tool around for breakfast and everything. And then we would come back and we'd be like, oh, it's siesta time. So we would take a nap in the middle of the day, and then you get up and it's like 5 o'clock, and then you go downstairs and the restaurants are opening up and people are having their charcuterie boards with their wine and everything. And it's a lively night and everybody's out and about, and it's a lovely thing. Like southern Spain is a great place to be in the summertime.
Nice. I think you sold my listeners on it. Your hand gesture, you're all about Spain, so I get it. and it's very interesting to look at the different cultures. One thing for me, growing up in America, and like you said, the U.S. education system, I was really blown away once I went overseas and saw how many other different cultures understood more things about the U.S. than I understood about their country. And I know before we started recording this, me and you was talking about it. Why would you say it's that way? One way that I look at it is when I grew up in the United States, like a horse plowing a field with blinders on, they only really focus on U.S. per se, history. I mean, languages in high school, I took Mr. Groves, French, Spanish, but there was no like Kyrgyzstan, or I learned a little bit of Albanian. I learned a little bit of Macedonian. I learned a little bit of Korean when I worked in South Korea. I'm learning a little bit of China from my barber. Here in Hawaii, my barber's Chinese, so he's always teaching me little different languages. What would you say to anybody, male, female, different race, even their religion belief, if they're an American and they never travel overseas, what are they missing out on? I could say it's a million things they're missing out on. But for you, what was it like first being from the United States? You get that magic blue passport and then you start traveling. What was your experience versus being submerged in American culture and then getting exposed to other people's culture?
Yeah, it was, I would say, number one, the experiences. There are so many things that I have experienced overseas that I would have never imagined that I would have experienced, from, thinking that we were going to die when we were doing this Premier Highway trip. And this guy was obsessed with Nickelback. I listened to Nickelback on repeat for 14 hours as we made our way through this trip. And there were so many things that happened on that trip that I was like, are we being left behind? What's going on here? To doing Jordan and learning so much about the culture of Jordan from our front desk guy, who was a real player in the game. Like, he took such great care of us, to getting really sick in Greece and calling down to the front desk, telling her, I think I'm dying, and her finding a off-season doctor to come see me in my hotel room. To find, he was like, you need to get back.
So the doctor came to your hotel room?
Yes, it was. So we were on it. It was October break, I think. No, it was spring break. And it was off season because we were island hopping. And one of the parents, I guess, had the flu. And I didn't know when I picked up the flu from her. I was fine the first 2 days of the trip. And then that third day, I got hit hard.
Okay.
And like halfway through the trip, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get out of bed. I was just like, I'm in a state. So I called down to the front desk and it was like, I am dying. I need a doctor. And she said, there are no doctors here. It's off season, but I will see what I can do. So she found a doctor somewhere, and he was like, this is what I think you have. You need to get to the hospital in Athens as soon as possible. I said, okay. So we started, me and the 3 friends that I was with started making our way home. And he had given me medication to take, and my friends went to go get the medication. A lot of it is patchwork in my head because I was so out of it. But I got to Athens, and the doctor didn't speak any English. But he asked me my name, and he asked me where I was from. And when I was first moved overseas, I would always say North Carolina. I never said United States or America. I would say North Carolina. So I said to him, North Carolina. And he said in his great voice, oh, North Carolina. And he started singing me a Zac Brown song.
Wow.
Because the only thing he knew about North Carolina was the Zac Brown band.
Wow.
And he loved the Zac Brown band. So while he's checking me out and telling me that I have a really contagious flu and I'm not allowed to fly, I had to miss my flight, by the way. He's like, you cannot fly. He would sing me Zac Brown band songs.
Nah. And what's interesting about that story, you told me the doctor came to your hotel first?
Yes. So the original doctor came to my hotel room.
Would that happen in America? Are we going to get an American doctor to come to us while we're sick?
Yeah, no. And he didn't charge me, is the thing.
Okay. And that's my point too, Alicia. If you are an American and you never experienced other experiences in other countries, you are truly missing out. I remember in Macedonia, I got my teeth cleaned, and it was just 20 euros. They made sure I was fine. I've been to a Korea hospital. It was just crazy. Yeah. The customer service that I received, and also the fees. They weren't like American fees. The cost of living is so low. We're going to take a radio break, and then we're going to come right back. This is Chadwick Experiences radio show, brought to you by WDRB Media. And I have my high school classmate, Alicia, on this radio show. And we're just talking about working overseas, traveling overseas. Stay tuned in.
Hi, this is Charles Chadwick, host of Chadwick's Experiences. Be sure to follow me at Instagram and Facebook at Reduce College Debt, and stay up to date on our live broadcast. We are WDRB Media, the voice of the community. By being on air, I'm able to share my life stories and experiences. As I have traveled all around the world, I have one main purpose, and that's to give a little something back to the next generation for a little motivation. Because in today's world, in order to reach their goals and find success, We all need some determination. Thank you, WDRB Media. Do you need more exposure for your business, brand, or organization? If so, let Chadwick's Experiences radio show help you fulfill your need for more exposure, more business, and return on investment. Connect with me at www.chadwicksexperiences.com today.
Welcome back to the Chadwick Experiences radio show. Today's episode, we have Alicia, my high school classmate, but one thing that we have in common is many things. We played band together. We went to the same high school, graduated the same year, but we have that international traveling, working, and just leisure experience. So I want to welcome her back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Now we're getting good, and I'm just so happy and pumped up because this is a topic where I think a lot of Americans need to start jumping in. How easy is it to travel internationally? I know for me, I got my passport, I want to say in 2013, and that was before I even knew I was leaving. But I know that growing up, the kids in school, I ain't gonna lie, I was jealous. I grew up on a farm in North Carolina. We really didn't take no family vacations, but when you come back to school and they just say, oh, write down what you did in the summer. And I would listen and look at what other kids, oh, my parents took us to France. Oh, we went to Morocco. And I was like, man, I didn't do nothing but play basketball with my shoes off in the summertime. So being that young child, I always knew that there was more than the United States. And lucky for me, I had an older sister, and she was always traveling here and there. So that's what kind of really motivated me, that I knew that I wanted to experience it. So I got my passport in 2013, and then I ended up getting my first contract overseas in 2015. And ever since that day that I left the United States soil, I can honestly tell you, I'm probably going to try to keep being an international traveler to the day I die. Even if I live to be 89 or 90, somebody's going to be pushing me through that airport to connect to my connection flight to go to another country.
Do it. Yeah, I think it was very similar for me. I think I started applying for jobs in 2011. So that was when I got my passport. And then I was offered a job, and within 7 days, I had landed in that country. So I started traveling in 2011 and haven't looked back. We've hit 35 countries at this point. Plan to hit 2 more before the year is out. Maybe 3 if I could swing it. We'll see.
And was your motivation as far as going overseas? What reasons? For me, I ain't gonna lie, I was going through a divorce. I was tired of being sick and tired. And for me, I didn't have nothing to lose. Like, my family was scared. My first job was in armed security, and it was like, oh, you might get your head cut off over there and the terrorists and all that. I said, even if that's going to happen to me, I'm sick and tired of being tired, working the same dead-end job, not making any money. And I love North Carolina. That's my roots. But I can honestly say it took a long time for it to register to me to leave North Carolina, not just so much for the money, but for other experiences. So for me, that was my motivation. I'm curious to know, what was your motivation? Were you teaching in the U.S. education field first, or you said you saw that movie and maybe there was something in that movie that encouraged you to do it?
I was working 3 jobs.
3?
Yeah.
Welcome to America, 3 jobs.
One of them was I was I would stock shelves at night. Another one was I would tutor during the day, and the other one I was working at Coastal Carolina.
Okay.
Teaching math there, and I was tired, and my sister had sent me a Korean drama, and I was like, I have no idea what these people are saying. This is what subtitles are for. But I want to go. This place looks like it would be so great to see. I want to go. After that movie ended, this was maybe December of 2010.
Okay.
Maybe November of 2010. I started applying for jobs. I interviewed February of 2011 in Charlotte, and he had offered me a couple places. He had originally offered me China. But it didn't work out with my schedule. Like, I couldn't leave because of the job that I currently had. And then he offered me Yemen. My dad said no. And then he called me November 2011 and was like, hey, he gave me a situation. And I was like, yes, I will take it. I went in to go see my boss, who happened to be my teacher when I was going to Coastal. That's how I got hired. She was my teacher when I was there. And
Okay.
she was the academic, the faculty hirer for that department when I came back. And I told her the situation, said, you have to go. And I was like, okay. I was so scared. I knew nothing about this country, to the point where I came in with North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina weather mentality in my mind. And I don't know why I thought this, but in my mind, I was like, everybody has to have the same winter as us. So I came in with my North Carolina sweatshirt,
Yeah.
a pair of jeans, like no winter boots, just regular tennis shoes. And I remember getting picked up at the airport and I was like, wow, it's really cold. I'm glad I brought my other thin jacket. And we were driving in the car and I remember seeing this white stuff everywhere. And I asked my boss who had picked me up, I was like, what is this white stuff that's everywhere? And he said, that's snow. I said, snow? It was so high. He was like, oh yeah, we just got a fresh dumping of snow. And I was like, oh. And because the heat was on in the car, I wasn't feeling how cold it actually was. In Celsius, it was -20 at this point already. And we got out of the car and I got into my apartment and the heat was already on in my apartment. So I didn't really feel the cold until the next morning when I had to go out into it. And I was like, oh wow, it's really cold out here. Is this the norm? And they were like, no, this is actually warm for winter.
Nice.
Yeah, it was quite the experience. It was interesting, but it was one of those things where it's like you wouldn't do it until you have to do it. So I encourage everybody, get that passport, leave the country, maybe do some research. I did not. Lucky I had good people helping me.
Yeah. And Alicia, that's the one thing I will say, when you travel internationally, there's a lot of good people and maybe there are not so many good, but for me, I've experienced more good experiences with people helping me try to travel and maneuver. It's not that scary as what people, being from North Carolina, I know some of the mentality, this is this, but I can honestly say America ain't the all. There is pros and cons. I do love the country where I'm from. I'll never denounce America. But when I go to other countries and see how other people are living, it really changes my mentality. All what's going on. It really is interesting. People, please do not be afraid to travel. If there's anything you can learn from this particular show, do not be afraid to travel. People are going to help you. You're going to learn the bus system, the train system, and even learn some of the language, And one thing, I had a good mentor named Simon, and he broke it down. Nelson Mandela had a beautiful quote. He says, when you speak to a person in a language that they understand, you speak to their mind. But he said, when you speak to a person in their native language, you speak to their heart. And it's an incredible experience. And I know for you, if you learn some Chinese or Kyrgyzstan and you're speaking their language, they're looking at us saying, you're not from here, but you understand a little bit of the language. And it goes so far. It even helps you from getting scammed from taxi drivers that know you're an American or run that bill up. So when I speak the little language, they'll kind of set back and say, wow, this guy got some experience, and charge me the normal rate.
Yeah, I had landed just before winter break. So a lot of my coworkers had already left. And I remember being like, I need to go out and get some thicker clothes. And in Kyrgyzstan, they speak Russian, is the native tongue in Bishkek, the city that I was in. So I remember standing on the corner and this babushka, which is Russian for grandma, was standing next to me. And I didn't speak any Russian at this point. Didn't even know she was speaking Russian to me. She looks at me up and down. And in my mind, when someone's looking you up and down coming from the United States, I was like, oh no, racism about to start. She looks me up and down. She wags her finger at me, and then she grabs my wrist and totes me across the street she brought me to what I could only describe as like a little bodega. Like it was just this little hut thing on the street. And she pointed to pants. She pointed to my pants and she wagged her finger again. And she went to the pants that are on the shelf. And she was telling me that I was going to freeze if I didn't get thicker pants. So she brought me to a place where I could buy clothes.
Wow.
So that I was not going to be cold. And then I had another one who took me to go find shoes. And I was like, oh, because this is when I first left. This is before the whole mobile apps on cell phones. Like Kyrgyzstan.
Oh, yeah, translation. Yeah.
They didn't have, like, you couldn't use like the phones like we have, like the iPhones and the Samsungs. I had a little Nokia when I first went to Kyrgyzstan. So you would be doing your texting where it was the 3 letters on one.
Yeah.
That was what it was when I first left. So I couldn't ask her to like translate or anything like that. But people have been so helpful to me overseas, and they're always asking, oh, where are you from? And they're attempting to speak in English. So I did learn some Russian while I lived in Kyrgyzstan. I did learn a bit of Hungarian when I lived in Hungary, but everybody spoke English in Papa, so it wasn't necessary. And then in China, I've learned some Chinese, but China has made it so easy to get by without having to learn Chinese.
And that's a good point you brought up. One thing that I want my listeners or viewers when this airs, it blew my mind, Alicia, how many countries I've been to. And even if I didn't try to learn the basics, hello, how are you? How much this costs? Thank you. Take me here. There were so many people that already spoke English. So I always looked at it in an international thing. For me, business has always been worldwide international. It's just, if you never leave the United States, people are speaking English. They understand more about our culture. They watch all the American movies. They know a lot. So one thing I can say is I would encourage my listeners, always, before you go to any country, at least learn hello, how are you? Thank you. It goes a long way, because I'm telling you right here today in 2024, when you travel internationally, there are a lot of countries that speak fluent English, like as if they were born in America. You would just notice the difference from the accent. So it encouraged me. I said, if they're going to learn my language, then I'm going to put in the work to at least learn the basics of their language.
Like the pleasantries, the manners, those things, learn them. And when push comes to shove, outside of China, have your Google Translate ready to go. You can text to talk. It's easy enough to do. In China, you can use their apps. They have a few of them that do Chinese to English and English to Chinese. WeChat automatically translates for you. So if someone types it to you in WeChat, it automatically translates. It also has a translate thing within WeChat. So if you take a picture of a card, like a menu, it automatically, like, you could take a picture of it and it'll translate that card for you into English or into whatever language you're coming from, whatever one you know. But I'd be like, don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. I know a lot of people love to go to like Italy and France and the UK because they know that they speak English, but don't be afraid to go to places that they don't speak, that you may not necessarily know that they speak English.
Exactly.
Step outside your comfort zone. There's a world out there to see. It's a great place to be. But yeah, do a little tiny bit of research before you go. That way you may not hear in this world being like, where am I?
Got you. And I look at us graduating a class of 2003. I don't want to tell our age, but that was almost 21 years ago. For me, it feels like maybe not so much 21 years ago, but it feels like maybe 10 years ago. I remember walking across the stage and all that jazz. But I just want the next generation of America to know, you hear me and Alicia's stories, little North Carolina, now we've traveled to some countries outside of that. Always think and live outside the box. If I could leave the next generation with something, and as Alicia said, with college, she was working 3 jobs. I was working 2 jobs. You got student loans and stuff like that. It might not be a bad idea to kind of travel first. And then maybe go back to college. What advice would you give to a young person? Again, I'm not knocking college because I have 2 degrees. use.
Oh, better than me. It depends on what you want to do. So if there are, guys, there's so many work and travel opportunities out there. Depending on where you want to go and what type of work you want to do. If you are a native English speaker, there are always places that are looking for native English speakers to teach English. Chinese children learn English in public schools. So I teach in international schools, and Chinese-born students who have Chinese passports cannot go to international schools. They have to go to local school. So, but within local school, they learn English in local schools. So those places are always looking for native English speakers, which means that you can go and you don't even need to get a college degree if you don't want to. Like, there are a number of places that you can go that you don't have to get a college degree to do the job opportunities. You just have to look for them. Get on them interwebs, on the Googles, and look them up. But don't let a fear of, oh, I don't have a college degree. Oh, I don't know the language. Oh, what if they don't like me? Don't let those things stop you, because then you'll just get stuck. You will just get stuck. Jump in. It may be rough the first year. Kyrgyzstan was rough the first year, but after that, it was easy. Like, once you get past the mental blocks that we've all set up, or the bad experiences that we've had that we're taking with us to other places, you learn to just be open. Now I'm an open book. I be smiling at everybody.
Yeah. Well, Alicia, I sincerely want to thank you. I think this is a topic that the more I listen to people, there's a lot going on in the world. You know, we got an election coming up. I don't get into politics. But one thing I can say for me, traveling internationally showed me a whole nother different world. And I understand, yes, we got this stuff going on, but I highly, highly encourage people, get that blue passport. If you can travel, great. If you can't afford a vacation, then go work in an overseas country. And as Alicia and me have experienced, we made tax-free money. So for everybody to say, oh, it's illegal not to pay taxes. No, it is legal in some cases. You just gotta know what opportunities you have. I really, again, thank Alicia, because again, this subject, we could do a whole nother episode of just international stories for sure. But I wanna thank you for sharing your life and your experiences. And that's what 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Experiences is about. I want this radio show to be able to share experiences to give people some game about life. And there's more than life than the United States. Yeah,
there is. Like, we learn about the United States, we learn a bit about Canada, and our focus goes south. Yep. Everybody learns about everything else worldwide. I learned so much from the people around me, from my students who've always got stories about something somewhere, and from just living life. The number of stories that I've accumulated over the years, just having lived, are astronomical, and I would not trade it up for anything. Yeah.
Gotcha. Same here. Well, this completes the episode of 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Experiences. To learn more about all the experiences we're experiencing when it comes to college, or it comes to job skills, or just life experiences, alternative pathways, this is the place. You can find me at www.chadwicksexperiences.com. Please look at our blogs, review, cash prizes, and I also write books, so check them out.